Everyone, you're talking about the article we read this week, A New World of Labor. So, this week's article describes the tough lives of plantation workers in Hawaii during the early 1900s. And many of these workers came from places like Japan and the Philippines and were stuck in these labor contracts that we previously read about in order to make a living. And they had to essentially grow and harvest sugarcane, but even after years of their hard work, they didn't really earn much money. And the system was unfair, not only just to the people, but just to the workers because they felt that they were cheated in how their pay was calculated. And the owners of these plantations, the people that manage these plantations, the Caucasian people, they use these bonuses like profit sharing and all these, and even took care of their employees and workers just to make them feel like they're being cared of when their bigger motive behind all of this was really just to stop them from organized strikes and uh, causing any sort of revolts on the plantation. And the life on this plantation that was mentioned, and just the plantations throughout all of history were very hard, and workers labored long hours under strict supervision by their overseers called lunas, and they treated them pretty harsh as well. They weren't even called by their names; they were called by numbers and were essentially dehumanized. And despite this, they still found some sort of comfort talking to each other, even having baths together. But even in these quiet moments, there was constantly reminders of their hard work without all this freedom that they should be having, especially the 8 p.m. bedtime whistle that weighed on them heavily. Connecting this article to something we previously read, Empires of Exclusion, I feel like both stories kind of underscore that Asian Americans and just the Asian immigrants were seen through an economic lens and were treated rather as assets than individuals. And both articles do a good job at highlighting racial exploitation and just the dehumanization of Asians in these oppressive national systems. And connecting this to my personal life, I feel like as students, we can also kind of relate to this siren to siren schedule that we have to deal with. And even more so as a commuting student, I feel like you're stuck to a very strict timeline within your day that you have to wake up to and fall asleep to in order to just make it to class and survive as a student. Moving on to some questions I chose to answer. So the first question I wanted to answer was, how do you think factors like competition for jobs played a part in the anti-Japanese movement? And the previous article did a good job at talking about this, especially because during the gold rush, when immigrants came over to work during this time, people essentially exiled them and treated them really unfairly because they saw that they were taking jobs away from them when they really weren't. Yeah, it definitely does a good job at explaining that there were a lot of factors other than just competition that played into the movements that we are seeing in these articles we read. As for a second question to answer, do you think Asian immigrants still face some of the problems that occurred in the past? I can definitely say that they do face these problems. One of the biggest things that came up in recent history would just be the pandemic and how that affected the image of Asians and Asian Americans. A lot of them were treated very unjustly and were kind of categorized all as Chinese because of all these things we heard about them eating bats and creating this virus that did go around. But at the end of the day, I still believe that Asian immigrants especially face these problems, and they're going to continue facing these problems as long as there's some sort of negative connection associated with them.